Out of the blue, Tales of Vanieta. It was a cold Thursday night in November. I had just returned home after a birthday dinner with the girls for one of our friends. It was well after 10 p.m. when he called. When he first called, I told him I was on a bike heading home. I promised I would call him back once I was home. Still happy for the successful dinner we'd had, I was eagerly looking forward to getting home for a routine night phone call with Innocent. Innocent and I had been in a long-distance relationship for about a year and a half. Like the norm is for long-distance relationships, daily communication formed part of our everyday life, oftentimes taking calls at 9 p.m. and deep into the night if the jazz was flowing. Sometimes it was smooth, sometimes it wasn't, and sometimes we just didn't have much to say to each other. We told ourselves that we missed each other more times than a 2-year-old asks the why question. We indulged ourselves in video calls, especially if call time came when one was still busy with a house chore or carried home an assignment. It was all good. Because of the nature of our relationship, we would be apart most of the time, but were intentional on being together whenever life permitted it. We had planned scheduled visits of once every quarter. At the time, Innocent was working as a social worker in Adjumani, while I worked as a hotel supervisor in the tourism city of Fort Portal. Over the course of the previous week, we had been speaking about his contract that was expiring in a few weeks' time. While there had been no mention about its renewal, he seemed to live without an ounce of anxiety about the possibility of not having it renewed. I remember asking him where he draws his confidence. Was it in his ability to land another opportunity within no time? Or he was so good at what he does that he knew that there wasn't any other way for the organization other than renewing his stay with them. As part of the conversation, he did mention that there was no recruitment exercise known to him ongoing, which would mean that they were looking to replace him. Hope. The next thing he echoed. He had this sense of hope and optimism about the future, like there was almost a guarantee to it. It almost felt like he relied on a bank of assurances from his God. If it were me, I would be tripping inside. I would be overthinking the near future and everything else that would revolve around the possibility of having a contract not renewed. When I got home, I rushed myself into the bathroom for a quick shower before I could sit down for the phone call. Drizzles outside had me in a slight worry whether we had to brace ourselves for another night heavy downpour that religiously compels Yumim to turn power off. The following day being a public holiday, I figured we would indulge ourselves with another lengthy phone call, knowing too well that there would be no morning rush to wake up to. A cold birth done, a cup of warm water taken, pajamas on, and I was ready to dive under my covers for that phone call. As I set my pillows and flipped my duvet open, it was almost like Innocent had been tipped off that I was all set for the call. The phone rang as the drizzles on the outside intensified. I picked up and we exchanged our routine greetings. He asked about the dinner, and I was happy to offer my legambo of how it all went down, how we felt guilty for not tipping the waitress that had been kind to us at the restaurant, all of us concerned about our liquidity. He made some sick joke about our lack of liquidity. We both laughed before he eased down to the highlights from his day. But as he gave that account, you could sense that he wasn't his usual jolly self, that for some reason his spirit was a bit low. With an odd tone, he said, "I have something to tell you, but I don't know how you are going to take it. Unless you murdered someone, I don't think there's anything that you can possibly tell me that I can't handle. I think we should break up," he said. I was stunned into a moment of graveyard silence. He called me out. Hello, are you still on the phone?" "Yes, I am," I responded, still in awe of what he had just said, but also wondering whether I had heard him correctly. "Did you say breakup?" I probed him. "Yes," he noted. "Why?" I asked. "I'm not sure I have a sufficient explanation for you at this moment in time, but yes, we should break up." He went on to spit out a bunch of garbage. At least that's what it all sounded like. That wasn't in any form an explanation for the sudden announcement. I stayed silent for the most part until he hung up the phone. It was all out of the blue. No explanation. Nothing. He just said it was done. I was left in a confused, wondering whether to call him back and press for answers or to just sit by, hoping that he was just having a moment of midsummer madness, that when his senses returned, we would talk. I wondered whether it was some form of test to check my presence, my affection for him. Did I need to prove myself? That I can actually fight for him, for us? I didn't think so. Given what we had been through in the span of that 1 year, I didn't think I still needed to prove myself. Besides, we were in such a good place as far as our relationship was concerned. To my personal assessment, the communication was good and everything else that comes with it. At the time, we had started talking family. I had informally met his mom, and we had made plans for him to meet my mom a step we both deemed too significant that we had to get it right. Like most women, I knew I was nagging to him sometimes, but he was quite accommodative of my once-in-a-while lovely shenanigans. When I woke up the following morning, I had this vague memory about the whole conversation we'd had, but it all felt like one bad dream, the kind you wake up from and say, God forbid. As I went through my morning chores, my mind was filled with what felt like racing thoughts about whether it was an actual conversation or just a dream. Eventually, as I dug deeper, I backtraced my footsteps to the moments through the night and realized that it wasn't just a dream. Nonetheless, I held on some ray of hope that if he calls in the evening, then it's not over yet, but if he doesn't, then shit is serious. Alas, he never called. Over the course of the next days, weeks, and possibly months, I spent hours brooding over what could have gone wrong, triple-checked the odor of my mouth and armpits, reflected on all the fights we'd had, but nothing sounded alarms for a heartbreak. I plainly came to one simple conclusion, that a relationship can die without a single slammed door, cheating, fighting, or a raised voice. The scanty conversations we managed to have in the subsequent months are not worth the digital pages they were inked on. To this day, if you ask me why we broke up, beyond the speculations of my mind, I still wouldn't give you a reason because I don't have one. And while we still talk, every once in a while, he has never said a thing. Although I badly want to know, I haven't bothered to ask why, wondering whether it would throw him off. But also, I think a part of me wouldn't want to hear it. I imagine if he were to tell me, whatever the reason it could be, I may try to offer some form of defense, a time-wasteful explanation that wouldn't patch what's already broken. But also, I think I'm a little too proud to ask. I don't want to give him the satisfaction that he broke my heart, albeit he did. And even as I narrate this story, I'm not sure I have fully recovered from that heartbreak. Hi everyone, this is Robert K. Circles. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Give us a like on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought. We love hearing your feedback. And if you know someone who might enjoy the show, please share it with them. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more listeners. Thanks again for being a part of the Robert K. Circles community. Until next time, take care.